Thank you, Representative Putnam. Now, the next speaker, someone very happy to be here. It's a high school student actually, so I'm actually older than him, which is weird. I think technically we could possibly be cousins because his grandfather is Tom Templeton, a second vice chair, and I like telling this story. Tom probably doesn't like it. When last year, you probably noticed those Vote Republican signs that we had during the special election, and Tom and I went to was it Lowe's to go pick up steaks and all this stuff. And as we were checking out, this worker there came up to us and said, "Do you and your grandpa need help picking up anything?" It would have been a long story to say, well, actually, I'm chairman, he's second vice chair, so I can say yes, me and my grandpa. But I'm very happy to have Cooper here to talk to you about the Second Amendment from the point of view of a high school student, which I think should be very interesting for you to hear. So please give him a warm welcome.
So for those of you who don't know me, let me fix my shoe. That's what you get for wearing cowboy boots. So I guess I'll introduce myself. I am from picturesque Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, or it's at least picturesque until you have to get in the car and drive anywhere and you see a bunch of Ohio license plates and it takes you 40 minutes to get to Walmart, and then you're just like, would it be a horrible idea to build a wall around the state and make John Kasich pay for it? But anyway, I do want to address the Second Amendment because that's what I did last time. I had the privilege of speaking with you all. Because now that's been thrust into the center of our political debate. So in wake of that tragic, repulsive, and horrible shooting at the school in Parkland, Florida, many surviving students have become political activists and use that newfound platform to push for their positions on gun control and other political issues. Let me be clear, I fully support their right to do this. They have a First Amendment, same as you or I do. And they went through a traumatic experience that I myself could not imagine going through. But it's also important that we note that going through a traumatic experience does not necessarily constitute to a level of factual expertise on a subject. Absolutely. The non-politically correct way of saying this would be that surviving a school shooting doesn't make you an expert on gun control, which is something that these kids have demonstrated rather repeatedly in the months following the shooting. So I have some quotes here. Some of these kids, I want to go through them, analyze them, and then I'll give you my 2 cents on what we should do about school safety and what we should do about guns. So this comes from David Hogg, probably been the most outspoken of the Parkland students. He's the kid who got on TV the day after it happened and said Donald Trump sickened him for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. But anyway, this comes from an interview he did up with, I believe, BBC. These pathetic expliciters that want to keep killing our children, they could have blood from kids splattered all over their faces, and they wouldn't take action because they see those dollar signs. And Hogg doubled down on this when he, at his big March for Our Lives event, where he hung a little price tag with $1.10 on it on his microphone and said that apparently if you run the numbers of the amount of money the NRA gave to Republicans in Florida and ran that with the number of students, that comes out to $1.10 per student. Now both of these quotes are obviously extreme and insane. The idea that the only reason anyone could disagree with him on guns is because they either like seeing kids get shot or because they're taking money from the NRA, that's absurd. We should all know it's absurd. But this exemplifies, I picked this quote because it exemplifies an argument that the left likes to run with a lot. And I've had people say this to me debating this issue. Those of you who don't know, I'm the sports editor for my school newspaper, and in a school newspaper you get plenty of liberals. So, believe me, I know what I'm talking about. I've had someone say this to me: if we only valued kids as much as we valued guns, everything would be okay. Why can you, as a Republican, not just value the lives of kids as much as you value your guns? Okay, there's a word for that, and it's stupid. That's a total false dichotomy. I know a lot of y'all in here are gun owners. Your guns are not a threat to school students because you're not going to go shoot up a school. So if everyone in this room went and turned in their guns to the federal government, would it make schools any safer? Would it make school kids any safer? Absolutely not. Because there are 100 million law-abiding gun owners in this country, and if all of them gave up their guns, our schools wouldn't be any safer because those people aren't going to go shoot up schools. And then I have another David Hogg quote here. This one I just like to pick on because it's pretty easy to responded, quote, "If you can't get elected without taking money from child murderers, then why are you running?" My response to this is one that's rather simple. Hey buddy, what's your stance on Planned Parenthood? Because you know how many kids the NRA has murdered? 0. The same amount of Hillary Clinton presidencies we've had. So, the idea that the NRA is some shady organization that is, nobody really supports the Second Amendment. It's just Dana Lash, the evil Dana Lash who has 3 kids and used to be a goth in high school, apparently. Those of you who don't know, that's a true story. No, the NRA is a lobbying group that takes money from people who support the Second Amendment and use it to lobby to get people who support the Second Amendment into office. Not that shady. But the idea that they're buying Republicans, I ran the numbers on this. The NRA in 2016 spent $57 million. 2016 election. That's primaries and general. Okay, that's a lot of money. Labor unions spent $1.7 billion with a B dollars on Democrats. Now, I'm not a very good math student, but that's 33 times more labor unions spent on Democrats than the NRA spent on Republicans. And on top of that, I think Planned Parenthood's Democratic campaign donations totaled $231 million in 2016, which is curious because the Democrats are always telling us that they need taxpayer funding to stay afloat. Now I want to move on to another student, Emma Gonzalez. She's a much better speaker than David Hogg. And she said something here that, seems reasonable, but I do want to focus on one thing. She says, when asked about how to make America safer, she said, quote, "Removing all the assault and semi-automatic weapons from our civilian society, instituting thorough background checks and mandatory rating periods are the way to stop mass shootings." I mean, that seems like a reasonable statement, but I want to focus on this first thing. Removing all the assault and semi-automatic weapons. She's not talking about banning AR-15s. She's not talking about raising the gun age. That's confiscation. Removing is the key word there. She's talking confiscation. And that's serious stuff right there. And while I'm sure a lot of people on the left privately, I'm sure of it, that they privately support gun confiscation, they'd never come out and say that because they would never win another election again. But I want to swing away from guns a minute and address what actually happened in Parkland, what I think really went wrong. And what I'm about to say, I want you guys to know, I do not mean this as an attack on law enforcement as a whole. The amount of times I've stood in my newspaper class and defended law enforcement against leftists totals quite a few, but this is worth pointing out. This is what really went wrong. The FBI was called twice, 2 separate times, and warned, hey, this kid, he could be a threat. There's a very real possibility this could be a threat. The FBI did nothing. The Broward County Sheriff's Department down there in Florida was called 39 times and warned, this kid, he could be a threat. This kid could shoot up a school. Did nothing. Then, while Nicholas Cruz was inside that school mowing down kids, the only SRO on campus, the only other guy with a gun, stood outside and cowered in front of the school while a 15-year-old ROTC student and a football coach were throwing themselves in front of bullets to protect their classmates and students. And to add insult to injury, there's one student I didn't mention, Kyle Cashew. He's a conservative. He met with President Trump. He met with Republicans and Democrats. He said, guys, I don't want to protest. I want to get this right. I want to help fix school safety. Last week, he posted a picture of him at a gun range with his dad. First time he'd ever shot a gun. Saying, I just fired a gun for the first time. It really solidified my support for the Second Amendment. I'm so excited to learn about gun safety. Last week, he was pulled out of class, locked in an office, and interrogated by 3 Broward County Sheriff's deputies. So let me get this straight. Scott Israel, who's the sheriff down there, although I will point out that the good law enforcement officials of that area just held a vote of no confidence in him, in which I think 85% said we want him gone. So I want to give a shout out to the But according to Scott Israel, 39 calls saying this kid might shoot up a school is too much. But then a kid going to the gun range with his dad warrants interrogation. Now, I realize I'm out of time, so I'm going to go through the rest of this really quickly. I want to reference the shooting that happened at a Waffle House this past week, in which James Shaw, American hero, unarmed charged the shooter and ended up stopping it. Emma Gonzalez took to Twitter to say, good guy without a gun stops a bad guy with a gun. Guess we don't need to arm teachers. So wait a minute, because so should we disarm all cops? That's almost akin to saying saying that I saw someone eating spaghetti with their hands. No one needs a fork. And that's courtesy of David French. You all should give him a follow on Twitter. He's a real smart guy. I want to run through really quickly some numbers. So the left likes to say 30,000 gun deaths a year in America. Okay, that's true, but 2/3 of those are suicides. 66% of all gun murders are committed with handguns, not assault rifles. So why does no one on the left want to ban handguns? Because nobody would get behind it. Now FBI crime stats 2015, rifles, all rifles, not just AR-15s, killed 252 people. Knives, 1,544. Blunt objects, 437. Bare hands, 624. Now the inevitable response to this is, well, you can't commit mass murder with a knife. Well, last month there was a knife attack in China that killed 29 people at a subway station. So I say that to say this, and this is what I'll close with. Evil people are going to do evil things. And no law is going to stop them, because evil people don't have morals, then they don't respect the law.
Amen.
It was not a declaration that ended the Holocaust. It was good guys with guns. It was not the Emancipation Proclamation that ended slavery. It was good guys with guns. It was not the Civil Rights Act that ended segregation. It was the federal troops that the president sent into the South to make sure those laws were enforced and to make sure that people had equal protection under the law. Laws don't stop evil. Good men stop evil.
Amen.
Thank you. God bless you.